So we're all hearing constantly about how AI is just changing everything, right? But there's this huge problem that we don't talk about nearly enough, and that's trust. I mean, how do we build an AI that actually follows the rules every single time, especially when the stakes are sky high? Well, today we're going to dig into a brand new blueprint for building AI systems we can finally truly rely on.
Okay, let's just get right to it. Think about this for a second. Would you trust an AI with your legal case? Or maybe to decide if you're eligible for a life-saving medical trial? My guess is probably not. And you'd be totally right to be skeptical.
Because in fields like these, mostly right just doesn't cut it. It's not good enough. Every single decision has to be backed up by clear, verifiable, justifiable rules. The huge problem is the large language models we hear all about, the LLMs, they're amazing with language, but they are not built for this kind of hardcore, rule-based logic. They can be inconsistent, they can make things up, and you can't really look under the hood to audit their reasoning. And for anything important, that's a complete deal breaker.
And this whole challenge, it really exposes this fundamental split in the AI world, a kind of conflict between two very, very different ways of thinking.
So on one side, you have the interpreter. That's your LLM. It is brilliant at understanding messy, real-world text with all its nuance and its context, but it can be a bit flaky, inconsistent. Then on the other side, you have the judge. This is what's called a symbolic system, and this thing is pure logic. If you feed it structured rules and structured data, it will give you a perfect, logically guaranteed answer every single time. Its weakness? It has no idea how to read natural language. So you've got this brilliant but kind of unreliable interpreter and this super rigid but perfectly trustworthy judge.
So what's the solution here? Do we pick one? Well, what if you didn't have to? Instead of trying to force one to act like the other, what if we just made them work together as a team? That is the core idea behind a framework called structured decomposition.
In this quote, it just nails it. You let each one do what it's best at. The LLM gets to be the street-smart interpreter that can handle all the messy real-world stuff, while the symbolic system acts as the by-the-book judge that makes sure the final verdict is absolutely logically sound. It's a perfect partnership.
Okay, so how does this dream team actually work in practice? Let's break it down. There's a simple three-step playbook, and you can kind of think of it like a courtroom procedure. It goes like this. First, a human expert writes the law. Then, an AI assistant fills out the case file, and finally, an AI judge delivers the verdict. Pretty straightforward, right? So let's look at each of those steps a little closer.
Now, the entire system is built on something called an ontology. I know, it's a fancy word, but don't let it throw you. Just think of it as the official law book for a really specific task. And here is the most crucial part. This book is written by human experts, not by the AI.
So, step 1, the expert writes the law book. This is where a legal scholar or a doctor or a scientist sits down and defines all the concepts and all the logical rules. For instance, they would write the exact legal definition of hearsay into the system, leaving absolutely zero room for interpretation. This whole process ensures that everything is grounded in verifiable human expertise from the very beginning.
All right, on to step 2. This is where our LLM comes into play, acting like a brilliant paralegal. Its only job is to read raw text, think witness testimony or a doctor's notes, and just fill out a structured form based on the rules in that law book. It's just tagging the facts, answering yes or no to questions like, was this statement made in court? It's not deciding anything, it's just organizing the evidence into neat little boxes.
And finally, we get to step 3. The symbolic judge delivers the verdict. It takes that perfectly structured file from the LLM, and it applies the human-written rules with pure, cold logic. The result is a verdict that is 100% consistent and 100% traceable. You can literally follow the chain of logic all the way from the evidence to the final decision.
Okay, that's the theory. And, it sounds great on paper. But does this dream team actually perform any better in the real world? Well, the researchers decided to put it through its paces.
And they didn't just test it on one thing, they threw it into a cross-domain gauntlet. We're talking analyzing legal evidence for hearsay, identifying methods in scientific papers, and figuring out patient eligibility for clinical trials. 3 very different, very complex, and very rule-based fields. And the results? A clear winner. This chart shows the F1 score, which is just a common way to measure an AI's accuracy. Think of it like a grade out of 100. The standard way of doing things, just asking an LLM for an answer, scored about a 75%. Kind of like a C. But this new Dream Team method, it scored almost an 80%, a solid B. And that is a huge improvement across all of those different fields.
So, okay, the team works. That's great. But why does it work? Is it just that breaking down the problem helps the LLM interpreter think better? Or is that symbolic judge really the MVP of the team?
To figure this out, they ran what's called an ablation study. That's just the fancy way of saying they took one piece away to see what would happen. So they asked the question, what happens if you fire the judge? They had the LLM do all the work of filling out that structured form, but then they just asked the LLM to make the final call, completely skipping the logic engine.
And the result? You can see it right here. It is fascinating. With the full Dream Team, the score was nearly 80%. But without the symbolic judge, whoa, performance absolutely plummeted down to 70%. That's even worse than the original method. This proves the judge isn't just helpful, it is absolutely essential. This quote from the research paper explains exactly why. It turns out that breaking the task down into smaller steps for the LLM, well, it actually creates more opportunities for tiny little errors to sneak in. The symbolic verification, the judge, acts like a powerful final fact checker, correcting or containing those mistakes. Without that final logical backstop, you just have a more complicated process that's actually less accurate. So what does this all mean for the bigger picture? For building AI that we can actually trust to do important work? Well, it gives us a genuine blueprint for trust. With this system, you get a full audit trail for every single decision. The logic is totally transparent, not some black box. And it's all built on rules written by humans. It shows that the future of reliable AI might not be about building a single better AI, but about building smarter AI teamwork. This isn't about replacing experts. It's about giving them a reliable tool they can finally verify and trust. And this really leaves us with a powerful final thought. Maybe the true future of AI in these critical fields isn't about replacing the expert in the loop at all. Maybe it's about empowering them with tools that are so transparent and so reliable that they are confident to keep themselves in the loop. The real question now is, what other high-stakes jobs could be transformed by an AI witness we can finally, truly trust?